Welcome to section 5.3, more on factoring trinomials. Hopefully by the end of this, you all will be able to factor trinomials where the leading coefficient is not 1. So, just a quick reminder, we did this in 5.2, but I want to refresh because we're still doing trinomials. Factoring is reverse multiplying. So how about when a isn't 1 now? So I'm giving you, what if we have 3x plus 2 times 5x minus 1, and I asked you to multiply it? Well, you'd probably distribute. You'd have 3x times 5x, which would be 15x squared. You'd have 3x times a negative 1, which is negative 3x. You'd have a 2 times 5x, which is 10x, and 2 times negative 1, which would be negative 2. You'd probably even combine those like terms in the middle. Negative 3x plus 10x, which is 7x. So you'd have 15x squared plus 7x minus 2. So again, with factoring, this is where you're going to start out. It's going to give you 15x squared plus 7x minus 2, and you need to go backwards. And that's the answer that we're looking for with factoring, as I want it to be 3x plus 2 and 5x minus 1 multiplied together. So how do we go backwards? Where did these things come from? Just a quick refresher. The 15x squared, where does that first term come from? It came from multiplying those first terms together, the 3x and the 5x. So that's multiplying first times first. And what about the last term? Where did the negative 2 come from? Well, it came from multiplying the last times the last. That 2 times negative 1. Not a first. It's last times last. And where did that middle term come from? Where did the 7x come from? Well, it came from us adding negative 3x and 10x together. And where did those come from? The negative 3x came from the outside product, 3x times negative 1. 10x came from the inside product, the 2 times the 5x. So to get that middle number, it's outer product plus inner product to get there. So for these trinomials, we're still going to be doing guess and check factoring. So remember, with that guess and check factoring, we're going to guess the first term so that they multiply to give us the first term of the trinomial. We're going to guess those last terms so that they multiply to give us the last term of the trinomial. And we have to be extra vigilant about checking this time, because it really is that outer product and the inner product added together to give us the middle. This time, you're not going to be multiplying by x, each time, so they don't add directly. They really do need to multiply in to give us that middle term. So let's try that and see what it looks like, and I promise you I will give you some tips along the way to cut your guessing down a little bit. So the first one I've got is 10x squared plus 11x minus 6. So this time, my first term wasn't so automatic, is it? It's 10x squared. So I think about, well, what times what gives me 10x squared? Well, I could either do 10x and 1x, or I could do 5x and 2x. And so you have to pick one. Doesn't really matter what we pick, but we just need to choose one. So let's try 10x and 1x just so that we can try it. With that negative 6, just like we talked about last time, if you have that negative, I can guarantee you that one's positive and one's negative to get there. With the 6, what options do I have there? I could either do 6 and 1, or I could do 3 and 2. Okay? So let's try those out. So let's say that I'm doing 6 and 1. My first hint of the day, and it's a big one, is if there's no GCF in my original polynomial, which you notice 10, 11, and 6 are not all divisible by the same thing, there's no GCF there, you will never have a GCF in any of your parentheses. So when I'm trying to place the 6 and 1, I am not going to place the 6 with the 10. Because they're both divisible by 2, I know there's no GCF. So I'm not even going to try that. I know it won't work. I'm going to put the 6 over here and the 1 here, because that's the only option, really. So let's check that. So if I check that, the outer product would be negative 60x. Inner product would be 1x, and that would add to give me negative 59x. That's nowhere near where I needed. So that does not work. All right, so let's try 3 and 2. All right, so if I try 3 and 2, same tip there. I am not going to put the 2 with the 10 because they're both divisible by 2. I'll put the 3 with the 10. I'll put the 2 with the x. And let's check that. So my outer product would be negative 20x. My inner product would be 3x. And that adds to give me a negative 17x, which is still not what I'm looking for. So I've tried both of these options with the 10 and the 1. I can go ahead and cross out 10 and 1. It's just not going to work. So let's go ahead and try 5 and 2. So if I have 5x and 2x, I'm going to try those combinations again. If I try 6 and 1, I can guarantee the 6 is not going to go in the parenthesis with the 2x. It's going to go with the 5x. So let's try that, 6 and 1. So then I check. Well, my outer product would be negative 5x. My inner product would be 12x. And if I add those together, negative 5x plus 12x would be 7x. Still not what I'm looking for. So my last one is 3 and 2. So let's try that. I can guarantee the 2 is not going to go with the 2x, so I'm going to put it with the 5x. And let's double check this one. 5 times negative 3 would be negative 15x. 2 times 2x would be 4x. Negative 15x plus 4x is negative 11x, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm looking for. And this is a really quick fix. If you get exactly the opposite of what you're looking for, switch your signs. So switch from that positive to a negative, switch the negative to a positive. Now you have positive 15 and a negative 4, which is going to give you the positive 11x that you would need. We have finally done it. Okay? So lots of factoring hints that we did today. List out those possibilities for the first term and last term so you can keep yourself organized. If there isn't a GCF in the trinomial, there will not be a GCF in any of your parentheses. All right, let's do another one. Maybe we'll be faster on this one. Let's see. We've got 6a squared minus 5ab minus b squared. All right, so we know it's a trinomial, so we know it's going to factor with these 2 parentheses. My first term should multiply to give me 6a squared. So with 6, my options are either 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. Doesn't really matter, let's just try one. How about we try 6 and 1? We'll have 6a and 1a. Let's see, they need to multiply. The last terms need to multiply to give me a negative b squared. Since it's negative, I know my signs are going to be a plus and a minus. And the only way to get b squared is b and b, thankfully. So at least we have less combinations this time than last time. Let's see how this checks. So if I check this, I'm going to have my outside. So 6a times negative b would be negative 6ab. My inside, b times a, is 1ab. And if I add those, negative 6ab plus ab, I will get negative 5ab, which is exactly what we were looking for. And hooray, we actually got it first try this time. So, we talked about this hint actually last time, but we'll add it in now. Is if you get exactly the opposite middle term that you're looking for, all you've got to do is switch the signs. Cut your checking in half. Alrighty, let's see. This next one, in example 3, we have 4y to the 5th plus 12y to the 4th minus 40y to the 3rd. Whew, that's a lot there. And hopefully you guys see those terms have some things in common. And so, we talked about this before, but always look for that GCF first. The previous 2 examples, they didn't have a GCF, so we didn't have to factor that out. But with this one, 4, 12, and 40, they're all divisible by 4. With y to the 5th, y to the 4th, and y to the 3rd, we can also factor out y to the 3rd. Once we factor those out, 4 times 1 gives me 4, and y to the 3rd times y squared gives me y to the 5th. 4 times 3 gives me 12. And if we had y to the 4th and we factored out 3 y's, now we have 1 y left. Minus 4 times 10 gives me 40. And if we had y to the 3rd and we unmultiplied y to the 3rd, we don't have any y's left. And then your thought should always be, can I keep going? Can I factor that some more? Let's try. So trying this, we're going to do our guess and check factoring. First times first should multiply to give you y squared, so that would be y times y. Last times last should multiply to give us negative 10, so that'll be a plus and a minus. And with 10, we have some options. We could do 10 and 1, or we could do 5 and 2. This one is a little more straightforward, isn't it? Let's try 5 and 2. Plus 5 and minus 2, and let's check that. So if I check that, y times negative 2 is negative 2y. 5 times y is 5y, and if I add those together, we'll get 3y, which is exactly what we were looking for. And if you're wondering, well, what do we do with that 4y to the third? Don't lose it. Make sure you bring that down. That is part of your answer, because you need all three of those factors to multiply together to give you your original expression. All right. So I put this on the first one just to be sneaky on you. Look for and factor a GCF first. So that should always be the first thing you think of. Is there a GCF? And if so, factor that out at the very beginning. All right, now it's your all's turn to try one and show me how much you've learned.